do yourself a favor when you get done listening to this episode and go check out my sponsors on their websites. Those links will be in the show notes, but I want to thank the following for supporting Last in Line podcast. I want to thank Armored Nation Coffee. I want to thank the folks at Do Work That Matters. I want to thank Kevin Fulton over at Lead Like Lions. Thank you to Gridiron Coffee. And thank you to Cowboy Revolution Apparel. Those are just a few, and we're adding to the list, but these are ones who have started with us at ground zero and are sticking with us till the end, hopefully. So go check out their website, get some of their products. Now back to the show. Hey, what's up? I made a post today about content consistency and cultivation, and I got to thinking more as the day went on about that, and I really think it's important. So I think it's worth more than just a post on Instagram, and I think it's worth more than worth more than just a handful of words about it, because I think there are people out there, including myself, that struggle with one of those three in whatever we're trying to pursue. So if our job, our passion, hobby, whatever you call the podcasting thing, if that's your hobby and you hope that it turns into something, or if you're doing, you're in sales and you're, these three things really are sort of the crux of how you pursue something and what fruit and harvest you see from those seeds you sow. And I think it's worth talking about. And so hopefully you guys saw the post, and hopefully you understand kind of a little backdrop on what I'm sharing. But I'm going to talk about content consistency and cultivation. And if you can dial in and lock down these three things and shore those areas up in your life, of course, there's more than that goes to life. But I think if we're talking about in pursuit of something that's a dream, a vision, a purpose, a goal, I think these will propel you into that, will propel us into that destination we're going for, that ultimate result we're looking for. So, the first one I'll talk about is content. And you can take this from any angle, really. You can talk about it from social media, podcasting. We'll put all that in one bucket. Let's just put communication maybe / relationships in another bucket. And then content of kind of what makes you. What do you show up with every day? We'll make that a bucket of content. And so 3 buckets of content here that are all vital. So, we can talk about the platforms that everybody's got. Everybody's on social media. Everybody's got to say something to say. Everybody's got a thought, an opinion, a viewpoint, a worldview. Everybody's got something they're an expert in, of course. Everybody's got an opinion. So this is relevant because 9 out of 10 people are on social media. So if that's the case, then content's a big deal. And I see a lot of garbage content out there. You may say, John, a lot of your content's garbage. Hey, you know what? You have your opinion. And I would disagree with that. So, I advise you turn this off. If you think my content's garbage, hit stop and unfollow the podcast. Right. Hopefully that's not the case. It's about half ingest, half not. But look, content's huge, but I see a lot of garbage out there just because there's so many soapboxes going around this world right now that everybody's got one. Everybody's got something to say and everybody's got a viewpoint, but that's okay. But a lot of times it's angry viewpoint. A lot of times it's off base. It's invalid. Their opinions really are based on facts that are not facts. So it's based on propaganda. It's based on a lot of different things. So I think we need to take a real long, hard look at our content. That includes me too. Like if I notice I'm getting on a rant or I'm maybe shoving something in a particular group of people's faces out of spite or vindictiveness or just out of flat meanness, then I need to really examine my motives. because content's huge. You know why? Because written content is there forever. It's out there. So we got to be real careful in how we deliver that. And content with communication, right? In relationships, like that's huge. If you could do a study on how many marriages would attest to having poor communication, I bet it's a high number. I bet I would probably be in the camp that has struggled with communication. And I got to tell you ahead of time, if I apologize if I just randomly have a cough that takes me by surprise, because I'm still kind of getting over this whatever it was that I had. Got a little chest thing that creeps up on me and just out of nowhere. So apologies. Anyway, look, I think this relationship communication in the content bucket is huge. And how can we get better at that? Well, we have to think about the other person's perspective and how they receive what we're saying. Now, that doesn't always work, trust me, because I've always, when I offend my wife with something, I turn around and justify it saying, well, if you would have said that to me, I would have never thought anything about it. So we can't always get in the boat with them and just let that dictate how we say things. If we would have been okay with it, then they should be okay with it. That's not always how that works. But I think we do need to understand the person and then understand what perspective they have. And then that way our words, if we're seeing it from their eyes, not our eyes, then I think that alleviates a lot of trouble and problems that we have in communication. But the content of our communication is huge. It's huge in sales, right? If you believe that sales is really nothing more than just transferring a passion of a product or service to another person in order to drive a behavior, in order to purchase your said product or service, then that's really all sales is. But guess what? In order to transfer that passion to one person or another, you can't just stare at them real hard and show them the product, put it in their face, and just wait. You can't just, squint your eyes and glare at them long enough for them to say, oh yeah, you got me. I'm influenced. Now I'll buy it. It's got to involve words. It's got to involve communication. So your content matters. So you got to believe in your content too. That's the thing is, in sales, in relationships, you got to believe in what you're saying. Can't be smokes and mirrors. It can't be fake. It can't be self-serving. It can't be with hopes of something in return, right? So your communication and the content of it is crucial because that drives a lot of other things. Relationships drive so much, and communication drives relationships. So then the other one I would say, what did we say? What was the other one? Sales, I guess, career. Yeah. So your content there, we talked a little bit about that, but what are you, or no, inside you, how are you showing up? That's right. Sorry, lost track. But yeah, how are you showing up within you? What are you bringing to the table? That's your content. What's inside you, your DNA, your character, your integrity. What are you about? So that's pretty straightforward, but I would say a lot of us fail because we're so caught up in the rat race. Sometimes we don't even think about how we show up. We're so caught up in trying to protect, keep a forest fire from happening. We're so in defense mode of the grease fire that we don't want to happen. So we're just kind of constantly just barely tying up loose ends in order for everything not to unravel. We don't really think about how we're showing up in that process. So that, before we step into any conversation, before we step into any environment, any setting, any job, anything, when we step into that, we got to be conscientious. We got to check ourselves, get right, say a little prayer, asking God to let you walk in the spirit, not the flesh, because we all know where that can get us. And pray for wisdom that you'd have the words and the behavior and the grace for other people and the patience to be successful, whatever interaction or engagement you have in that moment. So that's content. That's the first one of the three. We broke content down a little bit into three pieces, right? So that, I think if we start with there, content is huge because it is the composition of what we deliver. It is what the meat and potatoes of how we speak, how we carry ourselves, how we show up, how we communicate, how we engage and execute the plan. So those are huge. So then the second one's consistency. I would say it's an understatement to say that maybe Tiger Woods in his prime hit 1,000 golf balls a day. That's probably an understatement. It might be close, but 1,000 golf balls a day. Let's just put it that. And as good as he was, do you really think he thought he needed the practice? All honesty, he probably thought, because let's face it, Tiger Woods is one of the best we've ever seen. And at that pinnacle of his career, he probably didn't need as much practice as the worst player in the world when he was the best. So, but the guy still went out to the range and did the same boring strokes, the same boring swings, right? You got 13 clubs in a bag. He may, I don't know his regimen, but let's say he hits 1 or 2 a day or 3 or 4 a day, and then the next day alternates the others. But let's say those 4 clubs, he hit those since he's been 4 years old. And yet he's the best in the world, and he's going out and he's hitting thousands of balls with those same 4 clubs, the same swing, the same targets, the same desire, the same goals. That's boring. But let me give you a secret. Consistency is boring. That's why people don't do it. That's why consistency is such a commodity, because it's not common anymore. Nobody does it. There's so many flashes in the pan. There's so many one-hit wonders. There's so many people that come out of the gates full blast and then peter out, right? They fizzle because it gets tough, or they don't get the results they thought. They don't get the pat on the backs they thought they should get or expected. Their expectations were skewed. Let's put it that way. And they stop and they quit, and they're consistent. They're not consistent. They're inconsistent. And then, so they go a season where they don't do anything. Then they come back and they do it again, right? Everybody's got this ebb and flow. And I get that there's seasons for that. I get that you can't always be just completely 100% consistent at every single thing. But the main thing should stay the main thing. So if you're dialed in and you're locked into a purpose, a plan, a calling, a destiny, whatever, this vision, this dream you have for you. So if you're locked in, you're a believer in it. You love it. You're after it. That you should never wane from. You should never waver. So in the situation with me, man, so here's a great example. This is a great tale of 2 situations, extremes. So in my job, been in sales for 25 years, been really good at it, been number 1 in the company, won trips, won Rolexes, won bonus dollars. But sometimes you just kind of lose that motivation. Let's say you have a dip in your performance, right? Because if you know sales, they up your quotas and goals. If you do really good, they up them. And then the next year you maybe don't hit them because they elevate those and they get a little lofty, maybe unattainable. And you kind of have to ride the wave down before you can go back up again. And so you're maybe not making as much money. I've done that. I've lived it, but you feel you're a little demotivated. So do you stay as consistent? No, you don't. Not always. I mean, I'll be honest. I've been inconsistent when it comes to my passion, the drive, just some of the fire that's in my belly when it comes to a product or my job, whatever, it just kind of, you lose that gleam in your eye a little bit. And so you get inconsistent. Where on the other hand, if it's this podcast, if it's writing books, if it's teaching a class at church, if it's those things, and that passion never wavers, because it's something that fire in me just continues to burn. And even if it's smoldering, it's still hot. Even if I go through a season where there may be a dip, or, I may not feel like it's going the way it should go, or I feel like maybe there should be more to it than there is in that moment. Like, even in those times, those coals are still hot, because I'm still a believer in the message. I'm still a believer in what I do, my gifts, my callings, the relationships I've made, connections I will continue to make. I'm a believer, so I'm still running hot on that. But this sales thing, like, it's a need, right? It's a necessary beast, because it's my lifestyle depends on it. my family, right? So you provide, you've got to do it that way until you can do it this way. So that's my take on consistency. And there's a lot more we could probably peel back the layers on, because consistency is a big word right now. Everybody's talking about it. Stay consistent. Guys, being the faithful husband, the attentive present father, the leader of the home, like that isn't always flashy. It's sometimes a thankless job, but so is being a mom. Some of the parental duties can be thankless, but it's just what we do. It's our responsibility. It's how we stay consistent. And those consistencies line up and add up to a greater good and a bigger picture that's going to impact our kids, our family, our lineage down the road. So consistency couldn't really, I don't think, be talked about enough. And that's why I wanted to throw it in here. So content was the first one. Consistency was the second one. The last one's cultivation. Man, we're starting to revitalize our garden out back. It's been down, for the count for a couple years. And even before COVID, I can't even blame COVID on it entirely, but we had this, 10 by 10 by about, 2 feet deep plot out there, raised bed that's got these nice stones that are kind of, encompassing the dirt. And so we planted some vegetables, and they kind of did okay and not really. But come to find out, I think we took a shortcut on, having dirt hauled in, and it wasn't great dirt. And if you know anything about agrarian society, agricultural societies, which clearly I'm learning more than I used to know, but it's all about the soil, man, and cultivating and turning and nurturing the soil and understanding timing and understanding, taking care of the planting and the spacing and the watering. I mean, it's all just a thing. It's a big thing. And I'm not great at it. My wife loves it. I love when it works and there's a harvest and we start, we have all this fresh fruit and vegetables. I love that. But it all starts in cultivating at the grassroots, really. And that's, no pun intended there, but it literally starts at the dirt. And that allows the roots to take hold. So in our life of cultivation, like relationships, the more you can cultivate those and the network that you build, which I am 100% late to the party on that. Even in sales, I'm a master networker when it comes to a job and a paycheck. But I guess to a degree, that might be why I'm not good at it outside the lines of a job 8 to 5, because I'm tired of networking when I get done, tired of socializing, right? I'm emotionally drained. Like I got to go home and recharge and unplug from that environment. But networking, I would say social media has saved me a little bit on that, because if left to my own devices, I'm a homebody by nature. So social media has allowed me to reach out to people I wouldn't ordinarily reach out to. And yeah, I guess it could create some complacency and laziness, because you still have to engage and get out and kind of, in person mix with the people. But cultivating it requires work. It requires getting dirty. Relationships are messy. Like it requires to cultivate in the right way, in a healthy way, to see that harvest at the end of a relationship. We've got to invest early in the process. Like we can't throw it all together and then hope that there's this bright, shiny, luscious piece of, a vegetable ready for us to harvest. As it relates to a relationship, we can't just go out and meet a bunch of people, send them a few text messages, and then all of a sudden hope that they're there for us at 2 a.m. when we're on the side of the road stranded. Doesn't work that way. So cultivating the relationship is on us. Just like planting those vegetables and hoping I get a harvest from it, it's not on the vegetable plant's part. It's on my end. It's got to be me digging in. It's got to be me cultivating, me turning the dirt, refreshing the soil, tending the soil, watering, caring for it, nurturing the soil. So it's got to be all of that, fill in the blank with relationship. That's how we cultivate. And there is a fruitful harvest at the end of that. There for sure is. Granted, I've heard it said you're lucky if you got 5 close friends at the end of your life. You're lucky if you can fit them in one hand. And I would say that's true. I never believed that. But my dad, he used to always say that. And he's got, before he died, he had, I don't know, 3 or 4 kind of those steady guys that you just knew. He played golf with them on Sunday. He grew up with them. We don't all have that luxury of growing up with the same people we live in the same town of and play golf with every week. But that's what he had. I have maybe 2 if I'm lucky right now. But again, that goes back to me and the way that I have maybe passively approached that cultivation process. So I've got work to do there, just like I've got work to do outside. I've been busting it for the last 24 hours. 40 or 50 bags of soil, peat moss, compost, different things, and just really working the dirt. And I'm a believer that there's going to be a reward at the end of that. Just like I tell you that if you do that in relationships, if you do that in really your marriage, in your parenting, which kind of all falls under the umbrella of relationships, I'm telling you, there's a harvest there. You intentionally, do the work on the front end in your marriage, your wife's going to be more attracted to you. She's going to want to serve you. She's going to go out of her way to come up and give you a hug and a kiss, or especially when she knows it doesn't always have to lead to sex. Like, that's what I think we screw that up as guys. We think any sort of intimate touching just automatically leads to that. Well, I don't think they work that way, guys. So, they might go out of their way to just come over and give you a hug. When you've cultivated that on the front end and you've toiled, you've turned that soil and you've cultivated, nurtured her by serving her, by lifting her up verbally, right? By going and putting your arm around her without trying to, undo her bra, whatever you fill in the blank. Like, I know we're not 16 in a Mustang anymore, but you get it. So that's why I say these three things are huge. This whole content, know what you're saying, know how you're showing up, your content, what's in you when you arrive, wherever you arrive, the content you put out, what comes out of your mouth, what comes out of your device, you're typing, what email are you sending to somebody? What is the content you're creating? Are you a believer in it? Are you genuine in it? Is it self-serving, or is it about other people and serving them? That's the content piece. And then like we said, consistency is what it is. The same boring strokes. If Tiger Woods can do it, I can do it. You can do it. But make a list of the areas of your life or the tasks that you feel like are worth doing, even though they're boring, they're mundane, they're the main thing, keeping the main thing, they're the same boring strokes. Write those down and say, okay, is that worth it? Because it really sucks to do, but is it worth it in the end? Is it one of those staples that I really need to do as a man? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep doing it regardless of how sexy or exciting it is. Do that. Make that list. Stay consistent, because I promise that'll separate us from the rest of the pack, because everybody else, or a lot of people, don't want to do it if it's not flashy. That's the second one. And then cultivation, we just talked about. So keep turning your soil, keep investing in that soil, keep working the dirt, man, and take pride in it, and watch the harvest that you get from it, the reward that God provides. And you'll look around, your marriage will be better, your parenting will be better, your relationships will be better, your work will be better, you'll be a better person. So go out and practice these 3 things: content, consistency, cultivation. With that, be blessed.